Hello, Internet. My name is Emily. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling. I am passionate about growing and learning and healing and spirituality and relationships and just being a human and navigating this crazy world. And so I'm starting this podcast as a way to talk about the things that interest me and hopefully interest you and maybe start a conversation about that. Also, just to have a place to yap because I'm a yapper, I love to yap. So, this is my yap zone. So this is my first episode. Welcome, yay, first episode. And I'm going to be talking today about moving, because I think that that's a topic that maybe crosses everyone's mind at some point. I recently made a big move, and that has had me processing, and thinking. And it was something that I thought a lot about before I made the move, and I guess things didn't happen exactly in the way that I had planned for them to be. Um, and so now I'm just kind of putting a lot of pieces together. And hopefully, if you're someone who's considering moving or just curious about the process, me sharing a little bit about what has come up for me might be helpful, might be interesting. Um, so yeah, I have some notes here, so I might not look at you slash the screen slash my phone the whole time. But yeah, so I guess for me, I was living in Louisiana, where I went to grad school for, well, I didn't go to grad school for 9 years, but I lived in Louisiana for 9 years. And in the past few years, I started to think about potentially moving. And I had a lot of reasons for this. And if you think about moving, I don't think there's necessarily a right reason. Maybe there's some reasons that are healthier or unhealthier or beneficial or less beneficial, but I don't know if there's necessarily right or wrong reasons. But I can tell you about my reasons. So I think some of the main reasons I had were Louisiana's hot as hell. And I don't need it to be like cold like half of the year, but I would like to like wear a sweater. I like to wear a sweater. I like to not be sweating for 6 months out of the year. Um and that was just something that I think we had like a really hot summer, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I cannot live here forever. So that was a huge reason for me. It was like I need a milder climate. And that's very valid. Like you don't need to suffer. Some people are just not meant to live in certain environments. And that's very much okay. That was a big reason for me, and it wasn't just like the heat being a climate issue. It's also that it's the swamp, which is lovely and beautiful. The swamps are beautiful, but I'm more of like a hikey mountain woods girl. Could also take a beach, but definitely like to be in the woods. Like I feel very grounded and whole when I am on like a hike through the woods. It's one of my favorite activities. So for me, it was important to be somewhere where that was very easily accessible, which wasn't the case where I was living. And that's also very valid. And these are valid reasons. So beyond that, so those are the more like logistical, okay, comfort reasons. Is this matching my interests? Which I think goes beyond that. There can be the social interests, like for example, where I was living in New Orleans, there's a big drinking culture, which you don't need to partake in, but it can be immersive. Like it can be around, and I'm not a drinker. So that was something where I was always a little bit on the outskirts of like, this isn't fully fitting my vibe. Um, and yeah, I think there was just a few things that I loved and a few things that I didn't love. And I think that's going to happen anywhere. And I don't know that necessarily nitpicking in the place you're living is like a healthy mindset to decide to move, because those sorts of negative mindsets are going to come with you. Your mindset is going to come with you. You are going to come with you. You can't move away from yourself. No matter where you move, no matter if it's the exact opposite of where you've been living, you're going to be there. And that is going to be a huge factor in how much you enjoy living where you're living and if it's the right fit for you. So I do think I recommend doing some processing, some self discovery before taking the leap to move. And you know what? Even if you don't do that, even if you just decide to move, you'll figure it out while you're there and you'll still be okay. Like you might get somewhere and realize, oh, wait, actually, all the problems that I thought I had were just me. And now I'm here and I'm realizing that, and great, awesome, you learned a lesson and you're okay, and you can move back or not move back or move somewhere else or stay put for a little while while you figure all that stuff out. It's not the end of the world. Like you had an experience. Um, and I'll get into this a little bit later. Like sometimes it can be hard and it can be a very big decision. It's something that it can be helpful to be prepared about and have some supportive factors when you are moving because it can be a challenge. Um, but to where we were talking about the reasons to move. So beyond like maybe I think for culture there were like positives and negatives, so I don't think that was like a huge factor for me in leaving. The weather definitely was. And for me personally, one of my huge factors for like, okay, this is why I want to move is because something I have struggled with as I have grown into becoming an adult, and now at my ripe age of 27 years old, trying to settle into is my sense of capability. And I think everyone has varying degrees of this. This is a personality thing, this is a personal history thing. Everyone has a degree to which they believe they are capable of doing things, achieving things, whatever. And I struggled with feeling very incapable and insecure for a long time. Like I feel like looking back, let's say like my later teens, early 20s, as much potential as I had, like to, for example, be a hard worker or be intelligent or like achieve a goal, I had all this insecurity that was clouding me and just holding me completely back from like actually doing things and living life. Um, and that's something that I got to work through in the past handful of years from my mid 20s, through various resources or outlets, working with a therapist, having a change in environment external to me, having some distance from maybe relationships or situations that were keeping me in that cycle of maybe feeling incapable. Yeah, and my own like personal growth, like just making an effort to change and want to change and to see things in a different way. Those have all been contributing factors to moving away from this insecurity enough to go after something like a move. And so that was a big reason why I wanted to move. I wanted to kind of take that sort of self assurance that I had gained, by, having some cool jobs in grad school, by starting my own business, by, just trying different things, socially, in work, and just feeling a sense of achievement just by being in graduate school. Like that was awesome. That was very cool. I was very proud of myself for getting in and for doing the work to stay there, um, and for living on my own, living with a roommate, like all of this. They may seem small to some people or insignificant, but for me, I was like, I'm doing this. Like, I'm living life. I am capable of living life. I'm actually like kind of killing it in grad school. I have this job that's pretty impressive. Um, I want to put this newfound ability that I've like proved in myself towards something else. Like I kind of wanted to challenge myself, I guess, to be like, okay, I did all this stuff. I can achieve now that these things. That's in me now. It's not, oh, happenstance just worked out because I was in this place or because I met these people. Like, no, I changed as a person. I grew. I became more self assured, more capable. And so that was reflected externally to me. And that can happen anywhere because that's in me now. And so I don't need to latch on to something that, I feel like is serving me because I feel like it's the only place where I'm going to be served. I feel like that sort of mindset felt scarce and I wanted to push beyond that. So that for me was a huge reason for deciding to move. If you're considering moving, even if it's just like a little thought, even if it's just maybe something you've been thinking about for years and you've really thought it through, I guess encourage you to consider, and I'll go through this at the end. I have some questions maybe you can process or think through or journal about um, when considering whether you want to move. But that was my big thing. That was like, I am an adult, I'm a human in this world. The world is my oyster. I am now like, I have moved past so many of these insecurities and I think I can do it. Like, I think I can do this thing that I want to do that I'm thinking about. And so I want to try to do it. Um, and for me, this was a long process. This was not just, okay, I've decided I'm going to start planning, setting aside money, deciding where. It was a very like back and forth process. I at one point I was very set on moving to Colorado. Spoiler alert, the place that I moved to where I'm living now is not Colorado. So obviously that didn't work out. Keep that in mind through the story. But for some reason I was really set on it. I was like, okay, it's colder there. There'll be snow. I love snow. I love to ski. There will be hiking. Hiking, great. I'm very much like a health food person. My impression of Colorado, especially like the cities I was thinking about, were like, okay, people are like other like organic health food people, and like total hippies, and I'm a hippie, and I feel like that will work. So that was like on my mind. I wanted to be on a not red state. That was also important to me in light also of some things that have happened in the past few years, as many of you may understand or relate to. That was a huge factor for me as well, just feeling like me as like a person with a uterus had like autonomy in my body. So that was a factor. Not gonna lie. So yeah, so I was thinking about, so in my grad program for mental health counseling, you do 2 years, and sometimes there's some overlap or whatever, but 2 years basically of studying, taking classes, and then 1 year of being an intern. And sometimes those classes bleed into that year of internship. And I had done 2 years of school, and I was like, okay, I'll go do my internship in Colorado. That's something like that's an option to me. Like I can do it. And I looked into it. I had talked to, I guess, the liaison, the person who worked at our school that kind of facilitated making sure that your internship placement was like up to date and would fit with their credentials. And I looked into places, and then I don't know. I just was like, this seems like a lot. Like I'm still in school. It seems really expensive. Like internship you is unpaid. In some places you can find paying jobs, but I'd be moving to a new place with like a random roommate. Starting an internship at a place I won't even be able to visit in person. Haven't even visited Colorado in person. Like no, I don't know about this. I don't think I can take a leap like that. And I will say, I think some people can take a leap like that, and that's okay and perfectly fine, and they make it work. But for me, that became the point where I was like, this is too many hard things. This is going to be too overwhelming, which is okay. Like that was a limit for me, and it's important to know your limits, and that was a limit. Um, So I ended up staying um, in the same city I was living, doing my internship there. Um, and I think it worked out really well because my fellow interns were people that I knew from my school and I could lean on them. And I knew my supervisors, and that actually offered me the opportunity to maybe work through some things that were coming up for me that were maybe unhealthy reasons that I wanted to move. And I think some of that was like maybe some relational stuff, like not romantic or partnership relationships, but like I think sometimes when you're like working and spending most of your time and going to school with like the people that you're closest with, like it can get scary. Like there's potentially conflict that comes up. Like it might be hard. I think this is something people talk about, maybe not with work, but like living. Like my closest friends were people in the program with me. Like they're going to be my coworkers. Like that could get overwhelming. That could get hard. And I think part of me wanted to get away from that, to be honest. Like I think that was a huge part of wanting to move that I had to process, and why it was also best for me to not move at that time. Is that sometimes you got to stick it out to figure your shit out. Like sometimes you are just trying to escape. Sometimes things are hard for whatever reason. For me, sometimes relationships and repair can be hard and activating because I didn't grow up in a household where that was modeled to me in a healthy way. And so that can be a challenge. And at that time, I think there were some challenges that were coming up where I was like, let's just get out of this. Like, I don't want to deal with this. Better to have distance. Like, scratch that, we'll start over. And that's definitely been a pattern of mine. I moved around a lot as a kid, and so that was just kind of what we did. Like that's what I knew. Like things get hard, you just scratch it, move somewhere new, forget everybody, start over, and that's not healthy. It's important to learn how to repair. It's important to learn how to sit into in the discomfort and the ebbs and flows of relationships. That's an incredibly, incredibly important skill as an adult, to be able to manage being around people that maybe you're not getting along with, or sitting with distance in a friendship and figuring out how to navigate that, whether that being, allowing the distance or figuring out a way to repair. And that was a very important lesson that I learned in that year. And I navigated a lot of uncomfortableness and growth and distance and repair. And I'm really glad that I ended up staying to do that. And so that's something that I maybe offer for you as something to process or analyze, or challenge yourself to really reflect on. If there are things that are hard that are happening where you're living, that you're just trying to escape. And I think that can be a very complicated thing, because it could be like, yeah, the quality of life here sucks. My government sucks. Job market sucks, or things like that. Those could be valid reasons to move. But if it's like, hey, I have this ex here and we're having a hard time navigating things, or I just like it was a really traumatic breakup and I don't want to ever see them again, so I'm going to move. Or me and my best friend are in this huge fight and I don't know if we can get through it and I don't want to talk to her. Those are maybe not reasons to move. Those are other people reasons. That's the category I would put in reasons, because I feel like you have reasons that you want to move for or not move for other people, and you have reasons that you want to move for you. Um, Better climate or more fitting climate, culture that feels more aligned, job, like a certain job. Those can be you reasons to leave. And you reasons to stay could be wanting to figure your shit out and like work through the discomfort or make it happen there. Those could be you reasons to stay. Them reasons to stay. So like reasons you might decide to stay due to someone else, which are maybe not the best reasons. Depending on your situation, they might be actually very important reasons. But if it's because of some conflict with someone else, that's a someone else, like that's a something else reason. That's not a you reason. That's something external to you, and you gotta work through that shit. Like, I don't know what else to say about that. That's gonna come up for you everywhere. You can't just pack up your life and move every time someone makes you uncomfortable. You'd be moving every hour. Like, people can make you uncomfortable at any point. Things can get too close at any point. It's important to work through that so that you can have closeness with people. And the only way that you're going to get to a place where you can do that is by working through the discomfort that comes up with closeness with people. Um, and that's not to say stick through it with toxic situations. Learn your limits, find discernment, and sometimes, like, figuring out your shit is setting boundaries and holding those boundaries while existing around someone. And yeah, like, if you're dealing with a toxic situation, it is easier to just get up and leave. And in some situations, that might be the best option. Maybe not moving, but switching jobs, for example, or leaving your living situation. But it's also an incredible skill to figure out how to manage it if it's within a manageable range. So, something to think about. Don't move because of other people reasons, like someone pissing you off or someone thinking you should stay. But also, there are other people reasons that might be important to you, like wanting to be there for family, or, if a close friend or a family member has a child and you want to be there to support them. There's no shame in that. But those are them reasons potentially. And that might be something to suss out, whether you're willing to forego something that is calling to you on a personal level to be there for someone that matters to you. And I think that that's going to be dependent on you. Like, that's either way, you're choosing something that is important, and that just comes down to your own values. Like, it's very important to be there for your family and for your collective, and also it is very important to be there for yourself. And if these things are conflicting, you have to figure out a way how to navigate that best serves you. And also, in most cases, decisions aren't permanent. So maybe you leave for a little while because you're called to that, and then you come back, and that becomes the compromise. I don't really like the word compromise because I feel like that implies letting go of something. I like to use collaboration. So, like, maybe that's the best collaborative solution for you to experience what you're being called for and also be there, for the them reasons to stay. Um, so, that's what I have to say about that. Um, so, where were we in the story? Okay, so in this story, yes, I had decided to stay. Was grateful for that because I got to experience some more ebbs and flows in relationship, and moving was still on my mind. I was like, okay, I'm doing internship here. That gives me a year. Figure things out. Maybe actually go visit this place that I'm trying to move to. Um, and from there, because moving was still very much on my mind, something I was thinking about a lot, was processing with my therapist, was talking about with people around me and family members. Like, it was very much on my mind. So I ended up visiting Colorado, did a little road trip, saw like most of the like the cities that I would consider moving to. And I liked it. I was like, I think it's cute here. I feel like I really like the climate. Obviously, I was only there for a few days, so I didn't really make friends. I didn't really like center myself in anything, but it was a place that felt like good enough. But I didn't feel that, like, the spark. I wasn't like, I wasn't excited about it. I was just like, yeah, I want to move. I could move here. And so I was still on the fence. It wasn't a yes, it wasn't a no. It was very much like, uh, I thought about maybe California. I visited there plenty. That was something I looked into too. And nothing really felt right. Nothing really felt exciting or calling to me. And I just got to a place towards the end of my internship year where I was like, you know what? I'm about to have this huge transition. I'm leaving grad school. I'm like starting my career as a counselor. Why don't I do that in a place where I have some support, some network instead of starting all these new things all at the same time. Like that could be a lot, and that was one of my limits. Like I think in this process of moving, you got to take care of yourself. I think for some people, like they're very courageous. They know they'll make friends, or it's just easy for them to just pick up and go, and they're not thinking twice about it. I know that there are people like that. And I know there's plenty of people where it would be really hard to be in a new place without any friends. And it would be a struggle for them to like just start anew and make friends. And that's why you got to get to know yourself in this process of deciding if you want to move, to figure out where your limits are and what would feel safe for you. What would feel like loving also as well, because you don't want to like you want to challenge yourself, but you don't want to like toss yourself to the sharks and put yourself in a position to be hurt and harmed. So that for me felt like, okay, I'm starting all these new things. Maybe like I still really want to move. It's really on my mind, but grad school has been like a huge place of like structure, and it's going to be hard for me to like transition away from it. Like I really grew a lot and found a lot of friends here, and I really enjoyed this time in my life. Like maybe it would be best for while I'm transitioning out of that for me to have some continued familiarity in my friends and in the city. And so I settled on, okay, I'm staying. Started looking for jobs for after I graduated. Um and so my plans were, okay, I'm going to stay here. I'm graduating, starting to look for jobs for when I come back from this trip that I'm going on in the summer to visit family mostly. Um so, graduating, trip, job back in the city, and then maybe once I get my license, because there's a whole thing about becoming a counselor. You have a pre-license for a few years, and then you get a full license, and it's really easier to move once you're fully licensed. But it's a whole complex thing. So I was like, okay, this is my new plan. I think that'll be okay. Like I'll have some support for me as I transition out of grad school. I'll still have my friends. Like I'll get to continue working on the ebbs and flows of relationships and these friendships, and like continue, because that's very important to me, like working through that and like finding longevity in your friendships, even if that means navigating like a shift in what that friendship looks like. That was something that I was like, okay, I'll continue to have these friends, which is something I didn't really get much of growing up because I moved around a lot. I didn't really learn how to have longevity in friendships. I was like, this is a value to me. This is important. I'll get to have that. Like, that might be worth forgoing moving. And yeah, I started applying jobs. I was like, nothing really feels right. I'm not really feeling it. I'm not really feeling super excited about like coming back here. And also part of me in my soul is like, if I'm going over the summer to visit my family who all lives in Europe, I don't know if I'm gonna want to come back. I was very adamant about that. I was like, okay, you're gonna have to come back. You're gonna have to start a job, Emily. But I really just feel like I'm not gonna want to come back. Like I feel like I can't imagine myself getting back on that return flight. And that is what happened. I came here to visit family, live in different countries all over Europe, and I was like, yeah, it's not happening. I'm not getting on that return flight. Um, and so yeah, now I'm here and I live in Europe, And it's been several months. A lot of it was visiting family, traveling, and then a lot of it has been settling into a new place and figuring shit out. Um that was my personal story. So, as you can see, a lot of planning, a lot of build up, a lot of processing that all culminated in kind of a spontaneous decision. And I think because even though there was a lot of planning and pre-processing that maybe was associated with moving but not necessarily this decision to move, um there has been some like settlement, but also because of the spontaneity, there has been a lot of like post processing as well. Like, did I make the right decision? Having a lot of doubts. Um, and so I guess part two of this whole story is, what is it actually like to move? What is the experience of moving? Like, what can you expect? Um, a lot of other things that might come up as we start talking. Um, and for me, honestly, let's see how many months in. It's kind of a mixed bag because I was sort of traveling and then deciding to plop down. But where I've decided to plop down, I've been here almost 3 months. And yeah, it's been a mixed bag. I will say I've had days where I'm like, just feel like a sense of like light and zest and joy where I'm like, wow, like it's beautiful here. I feel so grateful that I like made the decision to move, like feeling such a sense of like settlement in my decision. Like I did it. I'm proud of myself and like this was the right decision. And there have been days where I'm like just bombarded with doubt. Like, this is a struggle. Things don't seem to be working out how I expected. I'm lonely. It's lonely to move to a new place by yourself, just FYI. I think some people can manage that better than others, and that looks different for everybody. But I think in general, it's probably going to be lonely for like 99% of people. And I think that's something to be prepared for and to understand in yourself. How do I respond to loneliness? And I think that's going to look different for everybody. When I got here, I was doing a non counseling job. I had just found a non counseling gig. Um, that was virtual, so I was pretty flexible, but also with working virtually, which, if you're American deciding to move somewhere, that might be a part in why you are deciding to move somewhere. It offers you flexibility, which is awesome and great. It's even more lonely because you're not sort of forced to interact with the people around you. You have to force yourself. And there's going to be less daily interaction that sort of eases you in to making friendship, building friendship. And you're going to really have to push yourself and like find areas where you can show up repeatedly to build those connections. So for me, I was working completely online, and I started off finding some Eventbrite and Meetup are great places to like find events um, that might suit you and that might help you find people with like similar interests, for you to get to know people and potentially make friends. And I had found a group that met up, I think regularly. I think at the time it was monthly. That was like just making friends. It was just like making girlfriends in the city. Um, and so I showed up to one of their events, which was lovely. I met a bunch of people. I felt like I had really good conversations. And the people that I spent the most time talking to, I reached out to like maybe grow a friendship from there. Like, oh, let's get coffee, and it never panned out. And that might happen when you're moving. You have to understand that like where you're like you have nothing. Not in that way, but like you're not established. You don't have your community here. And they do. And they probably don't have much space to fill, and their lives are probably busier, and it's not personal at all, but it's going to be a lot harder than you think to find friends. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. Some people are really lucky and it's really easy. And it also depends on where you move to. I spent some time in Lisbon and I found it really easy to make friends there. There was, especially if you're English speaking, there was a lot of English speaking. Um, I ended up in a situation during that month where I had multiple roommates, and there just happened to be people there that I clicked with. There was a lot of English speaking events, there was a lot of social events, like just a very open place. It's easy to make friends there. I'm in France now, where I'm living in my own place, and it's been a lot harder to make friends, and I haven't really had any sort of outlet where I can go repeatedly. And so it's been a challenge to familiarize myself with people. And I'm not gonna lie, like having those interactions where, I reached out to some people to grow a friendship, or I even spent, a few times meeting with someone and it not panning out. For me, it was discouraging. I think that's the case for a lot of people. Like that, I don't know if I necessarily took it personally, but it made me feel like, Hmm. Um, this is hard. And this is taking a toll on me. And as much as I need connection, the way that this is happening is hurtful. It's hard to put yourself out there and to want to make friends and for it to not pan out. Um, so that was my personal experience. I haven't gotten to a place where I've like made friends. I have some people that I talk to, that I've maybe gone out and done this or that with, um, but definitely not made friends yet. And I think from that point, I'm maybe not the best guide to be like, hey, this is how you make friends. But I think that if you can find a place where you can go regularly with some sort of shared activity, unless you're like wonderfully super extroverted, and you can just go to a coffee shop and be like, hey, I like your shoes, you want to be friends? Because some people can do that. uh, I'm not personally at that place. um I think for a lot of people that could be a challenge. So finding like a regular place to go through for a shared activity, I think that's a good idea. um, so for me, I'm currently switching from online work to working in person. And I'm hoping that could be like a first stepping stone to being a place where I have regular social interaction and converse with humans and hopefully make friends from there. Um, and I have, I guess, a new connection that I met here, and she has been going to a tennis club, and so that's how she's made friends. And yeah, and I think one other piece of advice that I would offer is, if there's a way for you to create some sort of structured social connection that takes minimal effort on your part, like maybe some sort of like, every week, like I am going to this art class and it shows up every week and I have to go because I paid for it. Obviously you don't have to go, but you paid for it. So it's like it's going to pressure you to go. And the intention isn't to show up. The, I guess, primary intention isn't to show up and be like the most sociable, lovable person ever, because that's a lot of pressure. The primary intention is to go there and learn art. I think that's going to take a lot of pressure off, because making friends, I think, sometimes can put you in this, wanting to make friends can put you into this state where you're in selling mode, selling yourself mode. Wait, well, in the sense that you're like, okay, how can I make myself likable? I think for a lot of people, I think it's really challenging. It's like monk status, like most master of being a human, for you to be like, I'm 100% authentic all the time. Like, I think if you want friends, part of you is going to be like, okay, how can I be more like like likable and wantable and friendly, and you're maybe not going to fully show up for yourself as yourself, and there's going to be a lot of pressure in that. And so finding spaces where you can be authentic as possible, I think, is really helpful. And I think friends is huge. I don't care who you are, everyone needs friends, and that's going to be a huge factor as to like your level of satisfaction and happiness in making a move. Like having community, that's just a life thing. Like even if you live in the same place you've lived for 25 years, if you don't have any friends, like you're gonna, like that's just not, no. People need people, like we need connection. So that's what I have to say about that. um yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to share with you about like the process of moving. Can be, it can suck to be in a place. I lived in Europe as a kid for a handful of years, and so it wasn't completely new to me. I will say that, and I think that has been an advantage, that the culture and the food and just how people are has not been a surprise to me, even if I do live in a different country. There's a lot of similarities that I'm not like shocked. I'm like, yeah, this is comfortable to me. This is actually something that I was looking forward to when deciding to move. Um, I think if the culture is completely different and the language is completely different, something to consider is how much of an outsider you'll feel like. Um, and I think everybody, and this just might be something to think about and process and journal about, everybody's going to handle that in a different way. Some people thrive in feeling like an outsider. They're like, yeah, I'm the most unique person ever, and I don't care, and I'm going to wear these funky pants, and I'm going to sing in the streets. Cool. I think that's great. Some people don't want to feel like an outsider. I think a lot of people want to feel connected and part of something, and it's going to not be as inherent in a place that's different to what you know. And there are always going to be places for you to find some level of connection. I think in a lot of places, there's going to be some sort of community of expats. Like, I would be shocked if you ended up, I mean, you'd have to make some really weird decisions to end up in a place where you couldn't find like one English speaking person or like one American. There's a lot of us. I think it's very likely that you will find someone who is American. Or you might have to change your perspective a little bit. Like, you might have chosen the place that you moved to because you really like cheese and it's a cheesy place. And you're gonna have to be like, okay, well, this person grew up in a very different way from me, speak a different language, but they also really like cheese. So in that way, I'm not an outsider. We are one and the same. um you might just have to shift your perspective a little bit, and I think that's going to be a challenge. I think it's going to be a challenge no matter what. If you move to a new place, I think things are going to come up emotionally, psychologically, that you're not expecting. I know that that has been my experience, and I think it's helpful to have some sort of pre-processing, but you can't predict everything. Things are going to come up for you that you weren't expecting. I think, you're probably going to be like lonely and isolated for a little bit depending on what decisions you make. That might bring up some stuff. It might just bring up that you hate being alone. It might bring up some feelings that were waiting for you in the busyness that you had created in your life before. Or maybe you had some really great friends and you realized that without having those friends around, like, your sense of self or your self-esteem is not as great. Like, maybe they were your sources of sense of self or self-esteem. Maybe it was the things you were doing and the lifestyle you were living and the place you were living in that constructed the majority of who you were. And now you're in a new place and you're like, wait, I don't have those things. Who am I? Like, there's something missing here. um I think for me personally, like, this sort of decision to step out on my own and be fully independent and like just do life in my own way has brought up a lot of feelings about periods in my life where I felt controlled or wasn't able to do things in my way, or it brought up a lot of like, okay, I am completely on my own now, not tied to any of these systems. I'm like figuring out job situation in between jobs. I have a lot of time on my hands. There's a lot of space here for some old stuff to come up. Like, okay, you're on your own now. You're on your own now. Wait, what's that Taylor? Whatever. We're gonna ignore that. We're gonna move on. I'm not bringing that up. Yeah, you're on your own now. Like, what does that mean? Are you still likable? Like, did you make the wrong decision? Like, can you actually figure this out on your own? Um, I think something else that came up for me was like, was I, part of wanting the decision of wanting to move was like, okay, I have this idea of what my life will look like. I want to live somewhere walkable. I want to live slowly. I want to be somewhere where like the food is not filled with crap. Sorry, but like in America, we have really low standards for just the preservatives and just like all sorts of crap we're putting in our food. And that was something that constantly infuriated me. Um, where was I going with that? Sometimes we just gotta stop and think because we lose our train of thought. Um, and now I'm in this place. I'm in a new place, and those aren't issues. And yeah, I had this whole plan for my life. I was like, okay, and I will have like this certain level of, I don't want to say income, but like a lifestyle that exists, and it felt like where I've chosen to live that was more attainable than where I was living in America. And then I got here and none of that was happening. I tried to start like doing all sorts of things, and it's actually been like, as much as yes it is walkable, but also like I'm having, where I ended up living, I'm quite far away from things, so I'm walking. And I haven't like, I had this idea of like, okay, living and feeling confident and being a professional and making a level of income and having community, and it feels like I have the same level of those things in a different way. Like, yes, I'm in a more walkable place. Yes, the food is something that feels a little bit more edible to me, but I don't have friends. And the professional track for me to be a counselor here is a lot different and more challenging to navigate. So I'm really in a different way at the same place I was. Like, it wasn't this magical decision that changed everything for me. I think because I had the courage to end up here and because some things are different, I'll be able to fill the rest in most of the way. And I will build that life that I was hoping to build. But I didn't get here and it automatically happened. Like, it's been a struggle, and there's been a lot of grieving for what I did lose. Like, all my friends, my lovely, wonderful friends that I love, like, I can now only access them through my phone. And that's really hard. Like, that's really sad. And they're doing fun things. And I'm just like, I don't have friends yet here, and I'm not doing fun things. And they're like making great strides in their career because they chose to stay in a place where that path was more streamlined for them. And I'm still figuring out how that's going to look for me. Like, I want to be a counselor. I know that that's my passion. And also the how that works here in France is a lot different than it is in Louisiana, and I'm still figuring it out, and I might have to jump through hoops or like take extra classes, and it's a much more challenging process, and I feel like I've set myself back in that way, and I'm still transitioning. And you're not just going to move and everything is going to align perfectly. If it does, I love that for you. Wonderful, excellent. Like, you have found the best place to live. You are thriving. Love that for you. But I think for most people, you're not just going to move and all the things that you were expecting this move to bring you are going to happen. There actually might be some challenging things logistically and emotionally that might come up before you can get there. What I will say is that despite the challenges and because of them, like, you will grow. In some way, this experience will bring you something. in some way. Maybe it's just that you learn a lot about yourself. Maybe it's that you become more comfortable in isolation. Maybe it's just that you learn about a different culture. You will take something from this experience. You might end up moving back home or back where you were or to another place from there. And no matter what, like, this experience will have been meaningful and you will have gained something from it, even if it was hard. And I say that to be like, okay, it probably will be hard and you can handle it. Make sure that you put supports in place to make it as positive for you as possible. You know, if you're someone that knows you do not handle being lonely at all, don't move somewhere where you don't know anyone at all, or do move somewhere where you know someone, don't know anyone at all, and make sure that you have like plans in place for meeting people or seeing people regularly, or maybe you have a therapist, or maybe you have like a tutor that you see twice a week that teaches you about the culture or teaches you the language. Make sure you have supports in place to know that you're getting needs met that will keep you at least at a certain level of okayness. It's going to be challenging no matter what, but you have to take care of yourself. I know for me, I meet a tutor weekly. She helps me improve my French, and she's lovely. I enjoy our sessions, and we chat, and I feel like she's my friend, and that has been a huge support for me. And if that's something that you can make happen for yourself, I would highly recommend it. Um, and I think this has gone off the rails and become a little disorganized, so I'm wrapping it up time. Um, I have hope for me. You know, things are looking up. I think there's ups and down days where things look better and worse, or feel better or worse. I know that I went on this journey for a reason, and that I have hope that I will make things work, even if they're not perfect, even if they're not like all the beautiful images I imagined and manifested my life to be. I will make things work, and I will make friends, and I will have a career, and I will have good days, and I will have hard days, and that's just life. Like, that's going to happen wherever you are. And I have that same hope for you if you do decide to move, that you will make friends, and that you will discover new things, and that you will navigate challenges, and you will grow as a human. I believe that fully, and I want to share that with you. And I think that's all I have to say about my story and my thoughts in general. But I'm going to leave you with some questions that I thought of. I thought of them. Just kidding. That's not what I meant by that. Just to maybe consider, maybe journal if you're a journaler, a journal girly like me, just to ask yourself and to ponder on if you're considering moving. So this is my list. I'll put them somewhere where they're readable, because I also need to like read things with my eyes and not have someone say words to me. So, okay. Question number 1. What are my reasons for wanting to move? So we kind of talked about like what my reasons were, but you're gonna have your own reasons. And from there, I think this next question kind of extends. Is there anything I'm running away from? So is that something that came up in one of your reasons where you're like, oh no, actually, I want to leave because I don't want to be around this thing. Depending on the thing, that might be something to reconsider. That might not be a healthy decision. Fair. From there, number 3. Is there a point I would decide to move back? Like, if you're like, I am miserable, it's been this amount of time, I hate it here, I'm not finding the job I want, I'm not making any friends, it's time, like, I did it, it's done, time to go. I think that's just something fair to think about. And it might change once you're there. It might be a terrible 6 months, and you're like, you know what? I feel like I need to keep pushing. That might be something to think about, and also leave room for your intuition to kind of speak you into the direction to go into. Um, I think something that I have thought about and I've had conversations about is topic around moving and failure. Like, would I see this as a failure? If I decide to move back, is that a failure to me? Like, what is a failure in this process? And I think that's just something to reflect on. And just for me to add to that, I would say, you know, what I've already said, like, no matter what, you're going to take something from this experience. Even if it's a miserable 6 months, you'll realize why it was miserable, or have a sense of like, these factors contribute to miserableness for me. And you will also like moved and experienced that and grown in that way and seen a new culture or a new place or whatever. Like, you, no matter what, you're going to gain something. But yeah, that's something to consider. What is a failure, and what might be the point in which I decide to move back? And then on the opposite end, like, what could I get from this? Like I said, like, you could get, you have the experience of having done something hard. It could also be for you, like, I'm doing something on my own that I've never done before, or I'm being spontaneous in a way I've never done before. Like, what are you planning to gain from this experience? And how can I grow? That's the next question. How can I grow? So you could grow, and you figured things out, you manage challenging things. Like, in what ways could you grow from this experience? And then I think a good question to consider as well is, how am I going to handle, or how could I handle the hardships? And I think that I will add to that kind of a repeat of what I've said. It's like, make sure you have supports in place for yourself. Have a good enough sense of who you are and what you need to put supports in place for yourself. If you know that you're someone who needs connection, like, make sure you have some solid ways, whether that be like a planned FaceTime with your best friend every week, or a art class that you're going to go to every week. Like, have some supports in place for things that you know you need, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not, if there's some challenges that come up. Like, take care of yourself. Don't just like throw yourself to the wolves. Like, put some nets, put some floaties on, or whatever. That was a mix between the sharks and the, yeah, whatever. Okay, you get the idea. I feel like this is a good place to end. I wrapped things up. I feel like the questions really like summarized. So I think we're good here. Thank you for listening to my first podcast. I hope that if moving is on your mind, or if you're post moving recently, that this podcast offers something for you. I would love, love, love if any of y'all are interested, to post a comment about your thoughts of what I've shared about your personal experiences of moving. I would love to hear what y'all have to say. And yeah, thank you for tuning in to my first ever podcast. I'm looking forward to posting more and building this up into a community where we can chat about these sorts of things. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of your day, or whatever, or night, or evening. Okay, goodbye. This is done now.